Okay, you got your business plan, you got your office rented, you got your equipment, you marketed yourself, you set up your IOLTA account. Now what the heck do you do? Dan Moore is going to talk to us about managing your practice.
As if I know something about that. That's right. Can you hear me all right? I wasn't hearing anything over the speakers. Can you hear that? That's better. Okay, so the first thing I'm asked to talk about today is time management. And this is one of those things that I've always struggled with and continue to struggle with and try to master. And I think that it provides a little bit of a unique environment when you're in a small firm or a solo practitioner as opposed to a larger firm because you wear so many hats as a solo practitioner. We've always heard that, you intuitively know that, but you don't really get it until you do it. You don't have a marketing department, you don't have an IT department, you don't have an office supply clerk, you don't have, you're everything. Or you share that with a few other people. So the way that ties into your time management is I remember times when I first started practicing, when I was, and let me just give you a little bit of background about myself. My name is Dan Moore. I practice with my dad, Don Moore, in the Moore Law Firm. And we handle cases where people have been seriously injured or killed as a result of medical malpractice, personal injury, those types of things. So when I started practicing, it was in the midst of learning all the stuff that you have to learn in order to do this area of law. Also had to learn a lot about how to actually run the practice and perform these specific functions. So I remember I liked computers, and I liked technology, and I liked working on them. So I remember when a computer problem would come up with somebody in the office, I would go look at their computer and mess around with it and fix it. And sometimes that would take longer than others. And I realized that there were some days where I would look up and 2 or 3 hours have gone, or the morning's gone, and I haven't done a lick of legal work. I haven't made a single cent, or we're a contingency-based firm, haven't moved the ball toward collecting any money. So it became pretty clear to me that I can't do that on a regular basis, and that was something that occurred to me pretty quickly. So keep that in mind. It's the same thing with the marketing business. You can spend tons and tons and tons of time figuring out what to do with marketing. I've done it. And sometimes I look up and I say, golly, I just have to make a decision and move on. And the way that I've tried to, again, I don't have this mastered, but the way that I've tried to do this is say, okay, today's my marketing day, or this morning is my marketing day, and I'll have it lined up. I'll have the appointment with the person on the telephone, or I've got the different things I need to review, the websites I'm going to go check out, the different maybe providers I'm going to go interview or whatever else. Have that all lined up so I'm ready to do it on a specific day at a specific time. Sounds simple, sounds basic, but if you don't do it, when you look up, your time's gone. And so that's the idea of compartmentalizing. The other thing that I found in my practices in dealing with a lot of lawyers is that a lot of us are perfectionists. Who here is a perfectionist? Would identify yourself as a perfectionist? Who here has realized that being a perfectionist takes tons of time? Right. And this is a deliberate process to manage the perfectionistic tendencies. In some ways, it's really good for what we do. Substantively, clients love it when you're right. And they love it when nobody can get one over on you because you've checked out every angle. They love that, of course. But what they don't love is when you can't find time to work on their case because you're so busy checking out every angle of your marketing plan. Not you have to have a marketing plan or you have to have a strategy, but at some point you've got to decide to move on. The way I've done this is make this a deliberate effort. I don't have any magic pill for you to take to manage your perfectionistic tendencies. But the way I've done it is just take a step back and say, how much time should I invest on this particular item? How big of a deal is it? What am I going to lose if I'm wrong? And then once you go through that analysis, sometimes it's a brief analysis, you got to make yourself stick to the importance that you assign to that task. So again, early on in my practice, I remember trying to decide, this is before long distance was really not an issue, when long distance was still something that you had to make a decision over. What long distance carrier should I actually go with to save money? So you know what I did? I created this big Excel spreadsheet and created formulas and took all this information I got from the different carriers. And I probably spent, I'm not kidding, I bet you I spent about 12 hours constructing the perfect spreadsheet down to the cent, which one was going to be cheaper. And I came up with the right answer. And I said, yep, that's the right answer. And then I looked at the bottom of like, okay, if you aggregate all of our long distance expenses over the last year, if we went with the cheapest one versus the most expensive, it was like per month, $5 more. Gee, I'm really glad I spent 12 hours doing that. So that's the type of stuff that I've really learned to manage. And if it's a small decision, who cares? And that's something that's really hard for me personally. It's like, I feel like I'm at a perfectionistic anonymous meeting. I'm a perfectionist. I have to get away from it and make the decision and move on. Along with that, you have to honestly assess those things that are going to take your time. I'm also notorious, ask my wife, I'm notorious for saying, I'm going to be home at 6:45. She says, I'll see you at 7:15. Every single time. And that's a constant challenge for me because work is so sticky. Everything that we do is so sticky. You open the door and you can't get away. And this is a process that we have to be disciplined with and say to ourselves, you know, it doesn't matter what else happens. I'm done with this task now, unless it's an emergency. You've got to stick to that once you've allotted the time. Honestly assess it. Don't underestimate. Don't overestimate. Honestly assess it, and then stick to that time. That's going to help. It kind of all funnels together. It helps you manage that. It helps me manage my perfectionistic tendencies. Helps me compartmentalize tasks. All this stuff kind of wraps up together. But the first thing that we always have to remember in our business is that we got to get the job done. And that's why I put first things first, get the job done. The most important thing when we're practicing amidst all of this talk is making the money. We got to bring the money in the door from a business perspective. We have to take care of our clients. They have to be pleased with our services. So that's the first thing for me is priority number one. If I've got an emergency that arises, in quotes, that a client really needs to hear from me, then I'm going to deal with that first, if at all possible, before I go take care of my marketing meeting. I might push that off. If I get in my practice, we get a lot of phone calls and we decline a lot of cases because it's contingency work and you're not going to spend time on cases that don't have a high probability of success. So if I get a good call in, I can't predict when that's going to come in. It's also a very highly competitive field. So if I get a call in, I'm going to, and I think it's a good one, I'm going to take that call as opposed to religiously bowing down to my marketing task that I've assigned for 10 o'clock in the morning. I had that happen last week. Had an appointment. The marketing people I were going to talk to understood, and I picked up the meeting 15 minutes later. We all intuitively know that, but sometimes when we get wrapped up in the business side of things and just everyday, progression of our lives, we forget that first things first. Okay. Also, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You all know this, but again, make time to be out of the office, to do other professional activities. There's been nothing in my practice that I can say individually, as a category, I guess, that has produced more benefit for me professionally and personally than becoming involved in different organizations, making contacts with folks. I enjoy it, and it brings business. There's just no other way to say it. It just takes care of the job. All right, support staff. I was talking to Peggy about support staff. I don't know if she's still in here. There she is. A little bit earlier today. And support staff is always a difficult question to answer. If you're first starting out and you don't know when you need somebody, that's a hard thing to figure out. Who here took any economics classes at any point in their schooling career? Okay. Who knows what the concept of comparative advantage is? Okay? If you've heard this concept, it's the economic concept that if you're a really economic buff, don't criticize me if I screw this up, but it's the concept that you may be best at everything in your office. You may be the best typist, you may be the best researcher, you may be the best writer, you may be the best court appearer, you may be the best will writer, you may be the best at everything. But you can't do it all, right? So the concept of comparative advantage is you spend time doing the things that make you the most money and that no one else can do. So if you type the old thing that I heard was, if you type 120 words a minute and there's no one that can touch you on the keyboard, but you're a practicing lawyer, that's not the task that you should be doing. Even if you can win every typing test and tournament in the book, that's not the thing that you should be doing. And so when you're talking about when to hire a support staff, consider this concept. People oftentimes justify this and say, well, I'm afraid to let go of this job to somebody. Nobody's going to do it as well as I do. Well, that's probably right. Nobody will do it as well as you because you care more than everybody. But you're probably going to be able to hire somebody who can do the job well enough, who can do a good job and make sure that your time is freed to do the things that really make the firm go and make your practice go and make your life more enjoyable. That's a hard concept to let sink in and let go of those things that are you're really good at, but that don't necessarily make you the best money from a business standpoint. I don't think there's any magic formula to when you hire support staff. I think if you find yourself doing tasks that don't require your lawyerly expertise too much, in other words, what I would suggest is you create like a little log. If you're considering whether you should hire your first support staff, create a little log of what you do on a daily basis. And then at the end of the day or the week or the month, however you want to do it, figure out what you actually had to do because you had a law license, what actually made your money because you had a law license, and what you could have had somebody else do. And if you're devoting a substantial percentage of your time, a third of your time, half of your time, maybe a quarter of your time, doing things that you could have somebody else do, really seriously consider hiring somebody else. That's especially so if you've got other work waiting for you in the wings. If people are calling, you can't get the calls. If you've got clients whose cases or whose matters, whose wills that they want you to draft, et cetera, are just sitting there waiting for you, and you find yourself doing stuff that somebody who you can hire could do, that's another tip-off too that you might be ready for a support staff. So when you make that decision, is it going to be a paralegal? Is it going to be a legal assistant? Is it going to be a receptionist? What's it going to be? And Peggy and I were talking about, I've made some mistakes in hiring people, and we have made some really good hires. And well, let me ask you this: Who here has actually ever hired anybody? Okay? Who's never hired a person in their life? Who has fired somebody? Who likes firing somebody? Okay. If you like firing somebody, Peggy does?
I know that we're on the way to being best.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But it's no fun. I understand what Peggy's saying. It's no fun firing somebody. But it can be fun hiring somebody. You're actually giving somebody a job. You're giving somebody a way to earn their living. That's fun. For those of you who've done that, that's fun. However, it's not an exact science. You're talking to somebody for, I don't know what your interview process is, but maybe a half an hour. Maybe you call them in for a second interview and you spend another couple hours with them and you talk to them. Are you going to get it right? Maybe you are, maybe you are. If you've never done it, or if you think you're crummy at it, I would suggest you're reading up on it. There are some good books out there. You can even take some courses on it. There are definitely, this is not the time and place, but know that there are questions you can't ask. There are topics you can't approach. And don't really try to get them around the back door and try to get the information that way. Just know what you're doing. You don't have to be an expert, but don't get yourself in trouble doing this. But paralegal versus legal assistant versus receptionist. You know, I don't care what somebody's called. I don't care what they want to call themselves. Some people get hung up on that. And I was talking to Peggy, and I said my two criteria generally are, I don't want somebody with a bad attitude. I want a person who has generally a good attitude about life. And second, I want somebody who's smart. I don't care what you know necessarily. It's nice if you know all about what we're going to do. But if you don't, if you're smart and you have a good attitude, we can teach you. You'll get it. Because it's not rocket science. You can get it. So don't get hung up too much when you're considering people's applications on what their credentials are, where they've been, what their degrees are, how well they did in school. All those things are helpful. I'm not discounting all of that. I'm just saying, be careful. I'll tell you one quick example. My paralegal now has been with me, I lose track, but 4 or 5 years. And just really, really good, very smart. She's one of those people that really could have done almost anything she wanted with her life, and she chose this path. But when she applied for the position years ago, she said, she called, either called or sent an email. I think it was an email, actually. She said, would you all be interested in somebody who's never worked at a law office before? Would you be interested in somebody who had an insurance background? And so we talked about it a little bit, and we said, let's bring her in. So we brought her in with a bunch of other people. I mean, literally, we had probably 50 or 75 applicants, and we brought in probably 20 to 30, something like that. And we brought her in. I talked to her, and within talking to her for 10 minutes, I know, and if I see some nods in the audience, if you've had this experience, it's almost like that person is smart. That person could work here. I don't care what they know. That person is smart. So we ended up hiring her, and we haven't looked back, and it's been great. She didn't know anything about the law, never worked in a law office, and she picked it all up. And I'm a little ashamed to say that we didn't give her the amount of training that we really should have given her on some of the things that we were doing. But she picked it all up wonderfully, and couldn't be happier. That was one of our best hires. Paralegal versus legal assistant, I don't care what the terms are. If they're smart, if they have good attitude, I'm fine with them. Receptionist, my opinion is a receptionist is a great thing to have if you've got the volume and the office traffic and the telephone volume and the revenue volume to stand it. I think it's great. I consider it kind of a luxury. If you can afford it, it's great to have. Probably not the thing you need starting out, in my mind. There are other ways that you can get the phone answered with technology nowadays. Easy to get systems that you can have automated attendance. You can have answering systems, that kind of stuff. And if you have a lot of people coming in the door, either you or some of the other support staff can greet those folks if you're first starting out. Don't forget about sharing a paralegal. There are ways that you can share a paralegal with other attorneys. If you're one of those folks that says, you know, I don't think I need a paralegal or legal assistant for full time, I'm going to get one for half the time and I'm going to share. You don't even have to coordinate the sharing. I know of lawyers who have a paralegal that comes in 2 or 3 days a week and works with another lawyer 2 or 3 days a week. The two lawyers don't have any idea who they are. They work, one works in probably 30 miles from the other one. And the paralegal is fine traveling, and that works out for them. So you don't have to commit to a full-time person. You can kind of dip your toe in as you're going along there. All right, let me touch on technology. I'm big on technology. I like it. I don't like paper. I like having everything consolidated. I have an iPad that has everything that I want on it. And you know, I still work on a computer in my office, but when I'm out of the office, I can do pretty much anything on my iPad that I can do in the office. Really consider getting an iPad or something like that if you think that you can make yourself use it to its maximum potential. Because if you're somebody that's not going to do that, then don't waste the money, don't mess with it. But you know, if you're a technophobe, I'm telling you, this isn't really hard. They've made it really easy. Apple's notorious, I guess notorious isn't the right word, is credited with making things easy. That's been their reputation from the beginning, and very intuitive. So the apps that are made work well for a lot of what we do. You can take notes. I saw somebody over here taking notes on their tablet, writing notes. You can flip it up and use it as a computer. I'm telling you, most of you probably already know these things, but if you don't have one, if you don't use one, I would encourage you to do it. Let me just tell you a couple things that I do with mine. If I go to court and I need motions and paper and all that kind of stuff, it's all on there, unless I have to hand something to the judge. But it's all on there, and I can reference anything and pull it very quickly wherever I need. I think Richard said, faster than you can with paper. It's just very, very seamless. If I'm looking at medical records, which in my practice I do quite a bit, and sometimes thousands of pages, it used to be that if you're going to go consult with an expert, you had to take an extra suitcase with you to bring the medical records to talk to the expert with. You know, you're talking binders and binders. So totally needless now. I've got this iPad that's got everything in it. I've got it organized. You've heard about OCR software. It does it all in a way that if you don't exactly know where something is, just type it right in, and it searches several thousand pages instantly, brings it up. You can do whatever you want with it. Very, very fast. Very, very useful. Not hard. Let me stress that. Not hard. Even though I like it a lot, I'm not interested in hard things. I want stuff that's fast, and that we kind of have a saying in our office. When we're in court and you're distracted by your argument and you're distracted by different things, you're kind of stupid. Somebody can hand you something, and right there on the piece of paper is what exactly you're looking for, but because you're focused on something else, you don't see it. We've probably all had that experience, and that's what I mean why we're a little stupid or slow. So if it's hard and I'm in one of those pressure-filled environments, I'm not going to figure it out, even though when I'm sitting at home, it's no problem. So I want to make it easy, something I can flip through very quickly. Other things that I would recommend. Consider individual PC versus cloud storage and backup. That's an issue. You've probably heard that. Everything, just in case you haven't figured it out, everything's going towards the cloud. I wouldn't be surprised within, I don't know, fill in the blank how many years, but not too distant future, we'll probably won't have PCs anymore. Everything will just be terminals accessing the cloud. Certainly from a business standpoint, I think that would be true. Other things to make your life easier. Internet phones you can put in your office. It'll coordinate with your computer. You can dial from your computer, dial the phone. You can get voicemails away. You can forward the things, your phone calls very easily to your cell phone. There's all kinds of things that you can do with the internet phone. And by the way, it's a lot cheaper. And you don't have to buy a big system necessarily. You can buy, I think I haven't used it, but I know somebody who has, like the Magic Jack, which sort of works on that principle. It's like $30 and you pay like $10 a month or something, and you can have your office phone wherever you want it. Very, very beneficial piece of equipment. Other thing to consider, I won't spend a lot of time on, it's been touched on before, case management software. If you're just starting out your office, I would suggest looking into case management software. I forget who said it, I think it might have been Don. I talked about Clio. Clio is I haven't used it, but it's not expensive. And so if you think, oh, I can't afford this, I think it's like $40 or $50 a month. Okay, 60. Okay, talk to Peggy. She knows the details, but it's not that expensive. It's per user, and if you're by yourself or if you have one support staff, it's just not that expensive. It organizes everything, easy to find, and better to start that way. I've done it where I've started without a case management, and then you have to bring everything up to speed. But what a royal pain that is. Just start with something off the bat, and you'll be a lot happier down the road. One comment on Dragon dictation software. I love it. I use it. It's great. If you get the right equipment, it'll make your life a lot easier. You can speak a lot faster than you can type. I don't care if you're the 120-word typist. It works great now. So I highly recommend, if you want to talk to me more about it, you're welcome to do so. File retention and destruction. This is a really big issue. I mentioned to Terry, or asked Terry, just kind of an update question, whether there's any rule in Ohio about how long you have to keep your clients' files. The answer is no, there isn't. He says that he gets more calls or a lot of calls on this topic, and it's a very, very difficult issue, because if you think about it, how long is that case file relevant? Is it because your case is closed and it's settled, and the statute of limitation, that it's no longer relevant? Or maybe is it you have to wait until the statute of limitations against you is done?
It's a difficult issue if you hold every piece of paper that you ever had, which is what the older lawyers have done. What we recommend now is establish a policy of how you're going to handle new client matters, and tell them in writing, either in your engagement letter or in a written office policy, whatever. And it depends on what kind of you're absolutely right. It depends on what kind of practice you have. I mean, some paper is useless within a year's time. The malpractice statute ran. The case is over. There's no appeal time. It's done. It's trash. But it really depends. But so you have to look at that. But tell them it's personal property of the client. That's the best way to look at the file. So tell them, when your case is closed, we're going to hold it for 1 year. If you don't come and get it, you're giving us permission to shred it, or whatever a reasonable time would be. I'm just using a year as an example.
Which is exactly what we do, by the way. We do it at the end of the case. We have a closing statement when the case is over. We tell them, we keep your original paper file for 1 year. After that, it's discarded. We're somewhat of mostly a paperless office. Everything's scanned in, and so we have everything in the file scanned in already in our server. So if they wanted a copy of something 10 years down the road, we'd probably still have it. But if you want anything original in your file, you got to get it now or sometime within the next year. After that, it's gone. And we've never had a problem with that. It really cuts down on the storage, because you talk about some of these files get really large, and you just can't afford to keep those things hanging around. Let me finish up quickly on insurance needs. There are three types three issues I want to talk about insurance. One is a malpractice insurance, which everyone knows about. One is business insurance, which a lot of people forget about, and the other is insurance limits. Malpractice insurance, get it. If you don't, you're nuts. Enough said. Business insurance, that includes all kinds of different things. So if you have valuable business contents within your office, you can buy coverage for that. Your office equipment, your office furniture, if you have expensive artwork, whatever, you can buy insurance to cover the contents. You also can get insurance, different coverage to purchase or to cover like personal liability, not like malpractice coverage, but somebody comes in your office and trips over the rug and breaks their arm. Are you responsible for that? Yeah, you can buy insurance to cover you for those things too. So make sure you have the proper insurance. With respect to insurance limits, with malpractice, get the highest limits you can afford. 1 to 2 million, you can get that pretty easily. Don't chance on that. With the other business policy, different coverages you've got there, what you have will dictate what insurance you should get. On the liability portion, I think you should always err on, in other words, on the injury portion, always err on getting more insurance than you think, because that's usually pretty cheap, particularly for a law office. Don't chance on that because if you ever have something like that, you'll be glad you have more of it. So my time's up.
Thanks very much, Dan. Thank you. I want to make a couple of announcements. Of course, I want to thank the Bar Foundation and our sponsors for underwriting this. Even if you paid the non-member rate today, the books and the lunch cost more than what you paid. So it was really a valuable program, I hope. Our speakers, I thought, were all fantastic. I thought it was well coordinated. A lot of good information was given. You'll notice on the agenda it says question and answers. We're not going to have a panel per se. I thought what we would do here, you're scheduled to go outside and get your box lunch, and please come back to your seats. One of the reasons for the seating arrangement today was I really wanted to promote interaction and discussion. You can meet each other, whatever. I hope you all brought a lot of business cards, that kind of thing. I think what we'll do, we've got a couple of portable microphones here. We're going to turn the camera off when I finish here in a second. We're not going to record you, but if anybody has a question for me or for any of our speakers, just put your hand up. So get your lunch, come back to your seat, just wave at me. Dimity or I will bring you a portable microphone, and we might ask you to stand up with your question, but we're not going to record you. We want this to be interactive. So thank you so much for coming, and thank you for your attention.